So this video is on ES V6 Peugeot engines and the limp mode issue. In other words, the major cause of limp mode on these engines, specifically the ES9A and the ES9J4S. So limp mode is basically a situation where you start a vehicle, or a vehicle is in motion, engine is running, and all of a sudden it stops accelerating even though the engine is still running. So that's what limp mode means. uh, Depending on some cases, it might accelerate maybe up to 1500 rpm maximum, but it won't go beyond that. But just say on average, the engine will be running as if it's on idle, even when you are pressing the throttle down to the floor, the throttle pedal. So that's basically what limp mode means. Is the full um, the full words limp home mode, but you can short it to limp mode. So now, if you have ES9A or ES9J4S V6 engine in Peugeot vehicles, the engine you are looking at right now on the screen is the one I'm referring to. There are actually two, but they all look alike, so I'm referring to the ES9J4S. ES9A, you find them in 406, 607, 407, 807, some other Citroen vehicle like C5, C6, and other models of Citroen that I probably don't know much about. So what usually causes this limp mode symptom on these engines? Most times it's not even what people waste their time trying to fix. Sometimes whenever they have that issue, they will either, depending on the injection system, they might go and change the accelerator pedal sensor, because or they will go and change the motorized throttle body. These two things, or may even go as far as changing the engine ECU. So don't always rely on what scan tool says on this, especially if the scan tool is only pointing at motorized throttle body. Don't rush to change the motorized throttle body. If it's saying it's engine ECU, okay, maybe it makes sense in that case to try another ECU. If it's saying accelerator pedal sensor, yeah, it could make sense. But as if it's showing motorized throttle body, throttle captor, for trying to remember the other codes that usually show error definition. If you're showing those things, no, don't rush to go and change your motorized throttle body or any of these engines. What usually causes it is vacuum leak. In fact, the major cause of limp mode on Peugeot vehicles with these engines is vacuum leak. And the vacuum leak that usually causes it is not vacuum leak on other vacuum, like the normal vacuum lines, the one that comes from the intake manifold to cylinder head covers. The vacuum line assembly, those ones, even when they break, they will not cause vacuum limp mode. The one that usually causes this is symptom of limp, called limp mode, is the gasket on the intake manifold. The gasket where when you remove the intake manifold, there's a gasket under it where you have that 6 holes. So why this usually happens is it is because of the design of the engine. Personally, I don't like that design of the intake manifold. It looks good in there, it makes sense, but I don't like the design. The reason why I'm saying that is I own another Peugeot V6 car that is not ES engine, which is the ZN or PRV engine, the one in my 505 V6. I've also owned another PRV that was in my 605 V6. So I know exactly what I mean by saying the design of the intake manifold design on the ES engine is not really, I don't like that design. I'm going to tell you why. For the PRV engines, that two PRV engines, the ZN3J and what's the name of the other one? If I remember, I'll point it out. Both are PRV engines, right? So you can easily access or remove or put the fuel injectors and the spark plug on those two PRV engines. However, on the ES engines, the 3 cylinders behind on the bank 2, I'm talking about cylinder 4, 5, 6, you can't access their spark plugs, their ignition coils, and the fuel injectors on them until you remove the intake manifold. And remember, these components are, what you, every once in a while, you may have to touch. It's not like it will take you every week or two to be checking them, no, or be doing work on them or on that back on the engine. But at least they should be easily accessible so that you don't have to go through the steps of removing manifold every time you want to check your spark plug, every time you want to service your fuel injectors, every time you want to check the ignition coil, knowing fully well that these engines, these ES engines, one of their weaknesses is misfire. They tend to misfire a lot. Even though I've explained in most of my videos how you can prevent that misfire from happening for a very long time, yes, you can actually drive these cars for months, if close to a year or a little bit more, without that misfire. But that's what they are known for. I mean, anybody that drives ES engine could tell you that the least of your concern is the check engine light or your instrument panel. It's something we are, as in, we are not just used to. We live with it. Because once that misfire comes out, there's no point in trying to scan the vehicle. Eventually might go away on its own. But the check light stays there. Then until after a while it goes off. Then it comes back again. You might even be driving, you might not even feel the misfire. But the misfire will happen just in a second. Then the check light will come up, then it goes away again. It might, by the time it might not, like I said, you will even experience that misfire. But probably by the time you get to your destination, you now see that your check light is on. Or while you are in the in motion, you notice that your check light is on. I know sometimes when it happens, or I might even park on the road, press the throttle, and the accelerator is still revving freely. The engine is revving freely, no misfire. You continue your journey. Then after a day or two, you'll be like, let me even scan the car to see why this thing came up. The check engine light. You now scan, you say, oh, intermittent fault, temporal fault, misfire on cylinder 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whichever. So, meaning, so that's what I'm saying. I hardly, as someone that that owns 3 of these engines, I don't bother trying to clear this check engine light. The only time I go there, like, it might even take me months for me to even put a scan tool on these vehicles that are my vehicles with these engines. Maybe I want to use it for something else. Because aside this misfire thing, every other parts hardly fail. I mean, parts that you need to scan the vehicle to know why, if it's faulty or not, they hardly fail. So why bother with scan tool? Unless maybe other things are not engine related. So my point is, you could see the reason why you have to be assessing these spark plugs, the fuel injectors, the ignition coil often on these engines. Their fuel injectors, they are very sensitive. They can easily, if you buy a bad fuel or a dirty fuel, they easily clutch than the other um, injectors on other engine models. So it might be better, or every once in a while you remove the fuel injectors, service them. That's what I mean, service. You blow through them, you flush them actually. You see, even the 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 vehicle becomes quicker. I'm telling you, as someone who have been using these engines for many years now, if not how many, I don't know how to, let me not exaggerate, for years, since when, 2013. So once the injector becomes partially clutched, the vehicle becomes less faster as it used to be, or quicker. But as soon as you flush them, it becomes this. You'll be surprised as you are pressing your throttle, boom. So, but then coming back to the subject of this video, limp mode, because every once in a while you have to remove your cylinder intake manifold to access the components on the bank 2. Over time, the gasket on that intake manifold will flatten. So once it flattens, remember it has 6 holes there. It's a 6-cylinder engine, or there are 6-cylinder. Remember, we're talking about 2 engines. So they have 6 holes here, and the gasket is there to prevent any leak from any of those 6 holes when you put the cylinder intake manifold back on the engine. So over time, as I remove it and put it back, those gaskets, it will now go flatten and level up with the intake manifold, to the point that even when you drop the intake manifold, it will no longer seal off those holes. There's a big kind of metal cast. Is it a cast or iron? I think it's an iron, if I remember correctly. Where you drop that cylinder intake manifold on top of the cylinder head. So over time, it will now stay porous. It will no longer be able to seal off that place. So it will create vacuum leak on that particular manifold or that gasket. It could be sometimes it could be just one small spot. So the symptom sometimes comes in 2 ways. It will come with both misfire on that cylinder. Let's assume it's on the gasket on the hole for cylinder 5 flattens, flattens a little bit or have a small space. So that cylinder sometimes will be misfiring constantly and also be showing you symptom of limp mode every once in a while. Or at the same time, the engine is misfiring, it will come up with limp mode as well. Or it could just be only limp mode, no misfire, as long as there's a vacuum leak on that gasket, on the manifold between the cylinder head and the gasket and the manifold. So that's what I mean. As you are removing it, putting it back, and these gaskets, they are not available new. So the right thing to actually to be done is every time you remove it, at least, or if you remove it more than twice, change the gasket. Or anytime you're removing it, change the gasket. But then it can be very frustrating knowing that, remember what I said, sometimes it could be to service your fuel injector, or to remove your spark plug to check, or whatever. And in fact, what usually will take you there more often is the cylinder head covers. In fact, they will even take you there more than even the spark plug, the ignition coil, and the fuel injector, because of weakness of this engine in terms of oil leak. Those gaskets on the cylinder head covers on the ES9J4S, ES9A, even the ES9J4. But my focus here is ES9J4S and ES9A. Those cylinder head covers, they leak oil like crazy. So you find out that every once in a while you have to remove them. I don't even bother changing those gaskets. You just remove them and apply silicone gasket maker, what we call black gum here in Nigeria. And then the leakage stop for, who knows, a year or two. If you don't use a quality silicone gasket maker, sometimes within few days, not even up to a week or a few weeks, it starts leaking, if sometimes worse than it was doing before. And you find every now and then it will be misfired, because once they start leaking, oil will be dropping on, settling on that ignition coil chamber, where the coil and the spark plugs are positioned or bolted on the cylinder head. So it will cause misfire on those cylinders. So every night you have to remove it, dry off the oil, maybe reseal the cylinder head cover, it goes away. So I'm just giving you the reason why every now and then you have to remove that intake manifold. And that's why I stated in the beginning of the video that I do not like that design of the intake manifold, not the engine, just the intake manifold. It looks good. It makes it look, like I said, if you have owned a Peugeot car with PRV engine, V6 engine, you find the 504, 505, and 604 and the 605. If I've owned these cars, you will understand what I mean by easier access to the cylinder head covers, the fuel injectors, the spark plugs. You won't have to worry about all these things I'm talking about. So, but then, I mean, you have to deal with it. You have a ES engine. So, from experience now, once this limp mode comes up, first thing you do is remove the intake manifold, apply that silicone gasket maker. If you have access where you can buy the gasket, new one, fine. Personally, if used ones, I don't waste my time. It's only a few occasions that I've seen used ones that were still better than the old ones that were causing it. They are still soft enough, thick enough. But most, like I say, just a question of time. If I put it, will look very new, still okay. The first 2 times you remove the intake manifold again, the same issue will come back. So these days, I don't bother anymore changing them. I just use silicone gasket maker, or that's RTV silicone gasket maker, which here in Nigeria we call black gum. But what I do is I don't use those high quality ones. That the one that can take, there are some that if you put them, man, it will just come up. It will kind of act like an adhesive. We just hold that thing. There are a few occasions where there are some brand of silicone gasket maker that I used. Next time I needed to remove the intake manifold, it couldn't come up. As in, it got to a point, it was as if the only option was probably to break the intake manifold. You just couldn't release the manifold from that iron where you tied it on the manifold, on the cylinder. It couldn't pull out. It took a while, as in, the intake manifold nearly broke before it was able to come out. So since then, what I now do is, like in Nigeria, the gasket maker I use mostly those transparent ones. They don't tend to seal off oil very well. It all depends on the temperature, operating temperature anyway. That's some that have up to 500 to 600 degrees Celsius. That's pressure, pressure they can take. So such ones, I don't use them. I use the ones that are very mild, the ones that are meant for like coolant lines or hoses or air. Remember that place is basically for air. That's a gasket, intake manifold gasket. So you don't need those high quality ones. Those ones that are meant for oil. So you don't need those ones to apply on intake manifold gasket. It's just for air. So use for those mild ones. So like anytime you want to remove the manifold, you can easily remove it without suffering or breaking the manifold. Otherwise, it will stay stuck. You without moving next time you want to remove it. So that's what I do. Once you apply it, the most times, I would say like 90% or 95% of the time, the lymph node goes away until maybe next time you remove the manifold and you didn't seal it off very well, then it comes back. So I took my time to explain all these things to know why I said in the beginning of the video, do not rush to go and change your motorized throttle body. Don't. Even though you might point it out, but don't. Remember, this engine uses electronic throttle body. So unlike the ES9J4 PIV engine that use what is it called? Mechanical or manual throttle body. So this one is electrically controlled. So once the engine senses vacuum leak from there, yeah, it stops controlling the throttle body. Now the throttle body can actually fail on this ES9A and ES9J4S engine. Yeah, they do fail. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I have 3 of these engines. Out of the 3, only one has failed, as in actually failed, not because of the cylinder head gasket issue or vacuum leak. No, it actually failed, and it became obvious. Since brand new, all of them, I have a history of record or logbook for all the cars I purchased, and these 3 cars I purchased. So none has been replaced except the one I replaced by myself. It was even the one that failed was the one on my 406. So every other one stays intact. And that one, even the symptom was enough. I didn't even need, without even scanning the car, I could tell it was a motorized auto body that was actually faulty. I mean, it was just making cranking sound inside the MTB. So it became obvious that the MTB has packed up actually. Though it was giving sign gradually. Gradually, it was showing sign this thing until eventually it got to a point, it was that bad. It was just cutting in and out, in and out, in and out. So I changed it with a used one. That should be I don't know, 2016 or so. It was around that time. I can't remember the exact year, but I have my diary where I wrote those things. I have a book for the car. I could look it up. So changes is that time till today. So every other this thing, and then other people that worked on their cars, most times they will be having that symptom. They keep changing, But it took me a while actually to now gain this knowledge that what usually causes this. Because like I was working on other people's VCs, sometimes this issue will come up. You put another motorized auto body, which I call MTB. Put another MTB, issue will come back that probably that same day or a few days later. You keep wondering what's going on. Is this the ECU? Not knowing that it was the intake manifold gasket. So it took me a while to. It was even my 406 that taught me that lesson. But I did a video on that. I was trying to diagnose a misfire issue. Until now led me to, it was a scan tool that led me to know that it was, because it keeps misfiring on particular cylinder. I think it was cylinder 5. It kept misfiring on that cylinder, and until immediately the limp mode came in at some point. So I was like, and I removed the intake manifold. It took like 4 attempts. Each time I'll remove it, remove the spark plug, do this, do that, service the fuel injector, it will still come back. Until like the 4th time, that same day, as I now remember, I said, okay, what's actually going on this particular cylinder? As I was removing the manifold, I was like, let me even check the gasket, because there was nothing, no gasket, no gum or silicone gasket maker applied. But I now look and I notice the level of the gasket. Other cylinders, the gaskets was thick enough, So they actually the gasket was preventing air leak into those cylinders. However, on that cylinder 5, it has gone inside. So it was already flat. The gasket is no longer protected. So I just applied that RTV silicone gasket maker and put it up. Boom, that was it. It stopped. So that's how I knew. And that was, this thing happened, was it 2-3 years ago? That's how I knew that this actually has been the cause of this issue. And most people wouldn't know. So like I say, it took me a while to actually figure it out. If you scan the car, it won't tell you anything about it. It won't tell you it's a vacuum leak is related or anything. It will just be telling you motorized auto body, this and that, throttle captor, this and that, depending on the injection ECU do. And this accelerator pedal sensor for the ES9J4S, personally, don't bother changing. That thing hardly fails. It hardly fails. You know, so I'm not saying it's an electronic, it can fail, but it hardly fails. So uh, unless it's point out on the ECU that is faulty, don't bother changing it. You know, hardly fails. Unless maybe mechanically it's broken, something hit it, it broke, or I don't know. But my point is hardly fails. So if you're having constant limp mode issue on your ES9J4S powered vehicle, and you've been changing MTB, I kept doing the same, don't bother with the accelerator pedal sensor. Sorry I didn't show it on your scan too. Go and do this. This thing. First, once you have that, first time you have limp mode issue on any of these engines, remove the intake manifold, apply this thing, do it first before you go further. So I think basically that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. For this engine, I love these engines. I mean, it's some things are better experience than explained. The only thing I'll tell you is if you are if your priority in looking for a car you want to buy is fuel economy, you want the one that don't consume much fuel, stay away from these ES engines. They are not meant for that. They have good. I'm not saying they don't have good fuel economy, but the fuel economy is tied to the performance of the vehicle. So performance will cost you something, and that is energy. And that energy means it requires more fuel. So if you want fuel economy car, the actually fuel economical car that will take you 1 liter for probably 100 kilometers. Stay away from these engines. The only vehicle I will tell you that you could buy with this engine and enjoy the fuel economy, not on the same degree with those cars that are specifically or engines that specifically make for fuel economy, but to a large extent is cars like 406 V6. 406 V6 with ES9J4S. Yeah, you'll be surprised how fuel economical the car can be. But still, it's not the same with like 406 with the other 4-cylinder engines. So the reason why I'm saying this, most people, when they hear me talk how good this engine, how interesting, how I enjoy them, they will quickly rush and buy, only for them to start complaining of fuel consumption is higher than they expected. So if you can live with that, then hey, go ahead. You will be surprised how this engine. I know some will say, oh, but some of these weaknesses you pointed out are too much. Well, like I said, if you go to my videos on this channel, you'll find so many videos I've done on this engine, pointing out how you can prevent or elongate some of these issues from coming up in your ownership of the car. The cylinder head cover leakage, I've talked about what to do so that it will take a long time before it comes up. It might even take years. Misfire issue, I've talked about things you could do to reduce the misfire, like the ignition coil, connectors, spark plug, the fuel quality. These are the things you could do, and you'll be surprised that you could use the car for months or thereabout before misfire may ever come up. Even if it does, it might be a minor, like the one I explained in the video, that might happen within a second you switch off the car, start it again, it goes away again for months or hundreds of kilometers. However, you can still prevent it or stop it from happening for a very long time, depending on like all the things I mentioned you could do. So these are the weaknesses of this engine, and they are way out of how you can still use them without experiencing them that much. So, but if you are saying it's too much for you, what makes you think the other engine you are going for don't have their own weaknesses? It's just because people are too biased. Everybody has their biases. I also have my own bias when it comes to the engines or engines I prefer. But at least honest enough or transparent enough, and also logical enough to be able to say, even at that, as much as I love these things, they have their weaknesses, which I'm okay with. And I have these are the ways I manage those weaknesses. But people will be telling you, oh no, this one doesn't have any weakness. It's just perfect. So you have to understand that. So whatever engine you say is better than this, understand that, the other engine has its own weakness, unless you are not honest enough, or you are too naive to realize that issues also abound on almost that or every other engine, not just that one you are interested in. It's a question of which one are you more comfortable with, or you can live with, or you can deal with, or you can manage. So I hope this video helps. All right.